Hello and welcome to your latest update on Tropical Cyclone 02P as it barrels towards Fiji at this time from Force 13 Australia. We're bringing you the latest right now, the latest update and the latest information on this significant storm threat to Fiji. So you can see on the visible satellite imagery right now as we approach the afternoon hours, local time, the storm is wrapping itself up quite nicely. It looks absolutely beautiful for a tropical storm equivalent system. Winds of about 35 to 40 knots, pressure of 996 millibars, located at 10 degrees south and 107 degrees east. So this storm is a significant threat to Fiji at this time. We could be seeing a Category 2, maybe even a Category 3 landfall or close pass on the Australian cyclone scale, a system that could approach hurricane status. So let's take a look at other forms of satellite imagery. You can see Fiji down here, the storm with deep convection in the center wrapping itself up quite nicely, defined banding features wrapping into the system, and beautiful outflow towards the southern side. The infrared satellite imagery right here, you can see the storm deep convection firing over the center. It has been firing all day over the past couple of days as well. And you can see some of these heavier thunderstorms now starting to approach Fiji at this time. Significant rainfall will be starting to fall on the islands very soon. And that's supported further by the radar imagery, the latest radar imagery. You can see some significant showers and thunderstorms starting to move into the outer islands of Fiji. I'm not sure of their names. And also some significant rain showers towards the west of Labasa. The main island of Fiji right now rain-free, but that is not likely to last, with significant thunderstorms expected to start developing later tonight. So let's take a look at the latest wind forecast. So you can see the storm center right here, located at what's that? Yeah, about 10 degrees south, 170 degrees east. Significant winds around the northeastern side. That's the strongest side of the system, of around 39 to 40 knots. Again, that's significant tropical storm strength. Rough seas will be developing in the area from about this time. And again, the southern side of the system as well, some significant winds there. So small fishing vessels should definitely avoid the area. And I also believe big ships are starting to avoid the area as well, because this storm is only going to strengthen. So as we approach the morning hours, local time, you can see the storm really starting to wrap itself up. 50-knot winds as it barrels towards Fiji. It's quite a large system, tropical storm force winds, or storm force winds extending maybe about 100 nautical miles or 150 nautical miles out from the center on all four sides as it does approach Fiji. And as we sort of get to Tuesday night-ish, so we'll start to see the storm begin its landfall process. So I'd say landfall probably at about midnight to maybe 2 a.m. if it is going to happen. The worst conditions will definitely be late Tuesday, very early Wednesday, and then probably by about sunrise Wednesday morning, conditions would be starting to ease, hopefully for Fiji. The northeastern side of the system, which is expected to bring the brunt of the conditions ashore on Fiji, that's going to bring the worst conditions. And again, if the storm does wobble further towards the sort of north, or at this point the east, we'll probably see a direct landfall over Fiji. But if it holds its track right now, the strongest winds will definitely be coming ashore around Nadi and sort of Lutoka, or those smaller communities on sort of the western side of Fiji. And that will certainly increase the threat of storm surge as well. And then, yeah, by about noon sort of Wednesday, the storm would be moving through the southern islands of Fiji, and yeah, sort of Wednesday evening, the storm will be starting to clear off. Conditions will definitely be starting to ease, and we'll be able to assess the damage on Fiji. Rainfall, a significant threat from this system as well. Looks like it's going to be concentrated towards the southern side of the system, and also in the bands towards the eastern side of the system. That does make sense with the wind forecast that we've just had a little look at here. Winds will probably be too fast to let significant amounts of rainfall fall on the area, but again, flash flooding, a significant threat to Fiji. The worst case scenario right now, we're sort of looking at about 150 millimeters of rain falling in about 3 hours, which will definitely cause some significant flash flooding on Fiji. That's something we've got to be watching out for. But again, I don't think it's going to verify to its fullest. I'd say rainfall totals, reasonably speaking, about 8 to 12 inches. Significant, but not catastrophic. But if you are in an area prone to riverine flooding or flash flooding, then make sure you are prepared for some significant flooding from this system. Let's take a look at waves right now. You can see significant waves expected to approach Fiji, probably approaching 30 feet. They'll probably remain offshore, but significant swells are likely to come ashore on the more exposed northern and western sides of Fiji. These islands here could get an absolute hammering from this system. Massive swells are expected from this system, approaching at, like I said, 30 feet, 10 meters in height. And a pretty short wave period as well, considering the fact that the storm hasn't really got its act together, it's only going to have about a day running up to Fiji. So again, damaging surf conditions are expected. So swimming is a very bad idea in any area surrounded, because rip currents are going to be a very significant threat indeed. Sea surface temperatures as this storm approaches Fiji looking pretty good, that's for sure. I believe we're looking at sea surface temperatures where the storm is right now about 28, 29 degrees Celsius, and as it approaches Fiji, they'll cool off to about 27, but the storm definitely will have enough energy to strengthen right up to landfall. And this isn't properly loaded in yet, but the 26-degree isotherm basically cuts off about here, so the storm will potentially be able to strengthen right up towards landfall. Just before I take a look at the official forecast, let's have a little look at wind shear right now. You can see wind shear where the storm is right now, fairly low, about 10 to 15 knots. It's certainly got room to intensify. It could also be better for the, it could definitely be a better case scenario for the system itself, and it could have lower wind shear to work with. However, right now, about 20 knots, that's not too bad, and the storm will definitely be able to get its act together. And as it approaches Fiji, it'll probably be around 10 to 15, maybe 20 knots in places as well. And as it gets further towards the south of Fiji, wind shear will obviously skyrocket as it approaches the subtropical ridge. Again, down here, we're looking at wind shears of about 120 knots, so that's ridiculous. Of course, it will skyrocket. So beyond Fiji and Tonga, it's not looking like a storm threat at all, and it'll probably die off down here well to the east of New Zealand. So this is a look at the JTWC forecast cone. You can see the storm strengthening, not rapidly, but definitely quite fast. That's for sure as it approaches Fiji. Initialized at 35 knots, probably will peak at about 55 or 60 knots with a destructive core you can see here, including the town site of Nadi, which is a pretty major population center. So if you are on Nadi, expect winds of in excess of 50 knots from this system. Again, it's going to have a very compact core if it does manage to develop one, and if it does manage to develop a core by around this evening or something, then rapid strengthening is certainly possible, but I do strongly doubt that that will happen. And then beyond that, it will die off south of Tonga and then towards the east of New Zealand. Maximum wind gusts probably about 70, 75 knots from this system. Maximum sustained winds, I doubt will get stronger than 65 knots. That's probably a worst case scenario considering the amount of time that the storm does, or actually doesn't have. It's only got about a day and a half of solid strengthening for it to sort of really get its act together. So right now the storm, hang on a second. Oh, God. Hang on. The storm right now, probably a couple of hundred nautical miles away from Nadi, about 700 to 800 nautical miles away from Nadi. It's got quite a lot of ground to cover, but again, moving at a fairly good pace, it certainly will be able to cover that ground over the coming few days. So let's jump back to the satellite imagery, really dive in and have a little look at what the storm is looking like right now as this loads up. So you can see significant thunderstorms already starting to approach Fiji. Conditions will only deteriorate from now. So make sure you are completing your preparations by around tonight, because as this storm approaches, conditions will rapidly deteriorate from tomorrow morning. A very solid convection burst around the center of the system right now. Very cold convection, about minus 80 degrees Celsius. It is looking quite solid indeed, and it is starting to wrap itself up with an inner core, or a center of circulation that's looking very robust, developing around here where the cursor is right now. And good banding features as well, really good convective banding features with some lovely outflow towards the south. So again, it's a system that could strengthen relatively rapidly as it approaches Fiji. We could see an increase in winds of about 30 knots over the next sort of 36 hours. So not rapid intensification, but definitely some quick intensification as this storm approaches Fiji. It's a significant storm threat, so do not take it lightly. Make sure you're completing your preparations and make sure you're staying up to date with Force 13. You can check out our website, force13.com, check out the main channel, Force 13, and make sure you subscribe to the Australian branch of Force 13, because we're going to be covering systems all over the South Pacific, storm systems all over Australia, and storm systems throughout the Southwest Indian Ocean this cyclone season. So make sure you're subscribed, because it is going to be a great cyclone season here on this channel. Make sure you become an ultimate fan as well and support us on the Patreon at force13 /patreon.com. That's all from us, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Bye-bye.